Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to join us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. A child aged 5 dies in a fire disaster which took place in Loom of the Mongo division. This night, we tell you how the incident occurred in this edition of the news. Also ahead, the Minister of Transport, Masena Ngalebibe Ernest, has lifted a ban that he placed on free travel agencies plying Cameroonian roads. We'll tell you more on that in this edition of the news. And in the second part of this newscast, we see how women are mobilizing during the electoral period. Those are headlines, which I'll be right back with the details. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much once again for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. We begin right away on a rather sad note on this incident which occurred last night in Loom of the Mongo Division, littoral region of Cameroon, a child that was calcinated as a result of a fire disaster that occurred at Pongdo neighborhood in Loom. The fire reportedly emanated from a power shortage after the sudden return of electricity. That is when the house that they were living went into flames. The incident occurred last night. Efforts to put out the flames by local inhabitants were almost fruitless. Details with Sumanji Gabriel.
A mother cries with so much bitterness. Her child has been burnt as a result of a fire incident that surprised everyone at the Pongdo neighborhood in Loom, Mongo division. For one of the inhabitants of the town, those who even live in the house couldn't clarify us that there were children inside the house. It is now that one is gone, they are telling us. Another says the fire was so mysterious. We are shocked. Such a thing has never happened. That fire is burning at 7 p.m. with the inhabitants still awake, and the house where the fire is emanating from, people were still consuming in front of it. The cause of the flames has been linked to the intermittent cut of power in the Pongdo neighborhood, and also the use of poor cables in connecting electricity, considered very weak. The house, constructed out of makeshift material, was burnt partially, but a life was lost. A very difficult way for the people to end the celebration of Assumption Wednesday in Loom.
We now talk about the socio-political crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. How are education stakeholders in the country preparing for the 2018-2019 school year in the country? The Anglophone crisis, challenges of learning in socio-political unstable environment are some of the challenges that observers are saying that they would be facing during the 2018-2019 school year. Despite the increasing challenges, stakeholders at the Ministry of Basic Education are preparing to brave the odds. They converge on the nation's capital, Yaoundé, as we hear in the following report with me, Armstrong Sander.
War against absentee teachers and those who come late to school. Recommendation of punctuality as a mark of a good teacher was the message of Minister Yusuf Hadija Alim of Basic Education as she launched preparations for the 2018-2019 academic year in Yaoundé. The new academic year will be a challenging one to some PTA teachers who were not recruited during the recent recruitment of 318 graduates from government teachers training colleges. They failed to be recruited because they were already above the age limit of 40 during the recruitment exercise, even though some of them spent more than 15 years of their lives chasing fires without success. Some of them say they have considered tabling a complaint before the Prime Minister, hoping to be recruited in a special exercise or get special advantages since they can't go back to school again. The new academic year will have the Anglophone crisis to deal with. Beyond the insufficient infrastructure in most educational establishments across Cameroon, classrooms and school administrative buildings in the northwest and southwest regions of the country have been reduced to ashes. The problems of education for refugees and internally displaced persons in the far north, east, northwest and southwest regions of the country, quantitative and qualitative problems of teaching and learning in a socio-politically unstable environment are the realities that the 2018-2019 academic year must have to deal with.
And we remain in the southwest region of Cameroon to talk about Boya, which is calm this evening, but it was not a similar atmosphere in the early hours of this morning after shootings in broad daylight precisely in Moliko. Boya obliged local inhabitants to retire to their respective homes, others simply had to stay indoors. Several business premises were closed. That was in the early hours of this morning. It lasted just for a few minutes. Activities have resumed to the southwest regional headquarters of Boya. We certainly will be coming back to that report in our subsequent newscast. Now, a health expert in the Kotel neighborhood Upper Sanaga division of the Central region of Cameroon has advised inhabitants to properly rear animals which have been allowed to live and feed in the same dishes with them. He says that it is not only going to save lives, but it would also clean the image of the entire neighborhood. Let's have the details with Innocent Aze.
Loosed domestic animals parading the peripheries of the Kotel neighborhoods in the Upper Sanaga division of the Central region. Animals and humans live like brothers and sisters in the same environment, according to a medic, Patrick Thierry Onono Etende. This is a very big problem because in some homes, children eat in the same dishes with the animals. Water crisis also strangles the inhabitants who are mostly compelled to fetch the liquid from doubtful sources like rivers, boreholes and other sources used by the loosed animals as well, thereby exposing them to illnesses.
Un réel problème de santé et je crois que
most of the illnesses registered according to the medic Thierry Patrick include diarrhea, mostly associated with children, and cholera risk.
Chanceux, mais on sait que ça va inévitablement vers la mort lorsque c'est pas traité.
The specialist, however, recommends extreme precautionary measures to the population.
On peut passer par les filtres.
Proper treatment of the contaminated water before drinking or used for cooking.
Ces filtres qui coûtent un peu cher.
Municipal authorities have also been called upon to play their own role to put an end to the act of freeing animals, which paints black the image of Kotel Quarter.
Déjà notre population, mais beaucoup plus la mairie de Kotel.
Thierry Patrick, the medic, suggests immediate sensitization of the population to stop the act.
De ces bêtes-là.
If this is not assimilated by the inhabitants, they are therefore victims of spending much money on health which would have been used for other purposes. It is expected the call to probably rear the animals will not fall on deaf ears.
And on to something else, the Minister of Transport in Cameroon has uplifted the ban on some free passenger travel companies in the country. They are Elegance, the known Butrans Voyage and Super Grand Mifi Plus Voyage that have so far regularized their status with respect to the norms in force. After being suspended on the 10th of July 2018, they can now resume their activities throughout the national territory. Meanwhile, Charité Voyage, FACO Travelers and Alliance Voyage travel companies have remained suspended for failing to comply with the law in force. It is contained in a press release that was issued today in Cameroon by the Minister of Transport, Masena Ngale Bibehejang Ernest. Now, one of the sectors of the Cameroonian economy which has not been properly exploited to the benefit of the population is the wood sector. A majority of wood products consumed in Cameroon are simply being exported from out of the country, despite the enormous wood in Cameroon. Professional craftsmen have indicated that the use of local wood product is a great source of employment for Cameroonian youths and the revenue for the country. Details with for me, Armstrong Sander.
Cameroon is very rich in forest resources, notably wood, but very little of the country's wood is transformed locally for the production of furniture and artifacts. Much of wood products used in Cameroon are imported, despite the enormous advantages of producing and using furniture and artifacts made of Cameroonian wood.
Quand vous importez un meuble,
when you import a coach, for example, if it has a lifespan of 10 years, the one made with Cameroonian wood will last for 50 years because Cameroonian wood is pure and long-lasting.
et c'est du bois qui dure.
Local wood transformation is a significant source of jobs and revenue for youth in particular, but professional craftsmen say only the use of legal wood is profitable.
Comme l'agriculture, comme l'élevage.
Like agriculture and livestock breeding, the wood sector is a melting pot of jobs for youth. Government just needs to encourage the youth to produce quality artifacts that can be exported.
Et à faire beaucoup pour pouvoir exporter.
If you are a craftsman and you are not using legal wood, you will not be able to export your products. So, Cameroonians should know that if they want to make money from artifacts during the Africa Cup of Nations, they must learn to use legal Cameroonian wood.
Ils doivent s'habituer à utiliser le bois légal. Le bois légal, c'est le bois qui est autorisé.
Legal wood is that which government has authorized its lumbering. Wood that is cut indiscriminately in the bushes destroy the environment. Only legal wood should be used.
C'est le bois donc qui est utilisé.
And this is why the Platform for the Sustainable Development and Promotion of Growth and the Wood Sector in Cameroon is organizing a trade fair for craftsmen and the development of local communities.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. We talk about elections as far as women are concerned. Women are concerned in the second part of this newscast. Stay with us. We thank you so much once again for joining us in the second part of this newscast. We are being joined by a member of Women for International League for Peace. She's equally a member of Women for Peace Initiative, Mrs. Opoltin Kenfak F.I. Somba. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi, and thank you for inviting me.
We thank you so much for coming. You have created a platform. And it's an initiative, a forum, as I can put it, of Cameroonian women for peaceful election in the country. Can you tell us why you came up with such an initiative at this point in time?
Yes, thank you very much, Mimi. You know, as a civil society, we work hand in glove with the government, and our duty is to assist the government, to accompany the government in every activity in the political or social or any domain in the society. And so we came up with the initiative of women's, we came up with initiatives that we propose to the government in order for them to better govern the country. So all what we are doing is for good governance and to help the government and to remind them of these things. So this time, as elections are coming up, you know, one of our main focus in WILF International, that is WILF meaning Women International League for Peace and Freedom.
Of course.
Yes, one of our focus or one of our domains of intervention is women, peace and security. And in line with that domain, we have to intervene kind of in these elections because we have to work hand in glove with government so that we have a peaceful elections. And that is why we came up with the initiative of the women, what do we call it? The women's room, yes, for this election, so that women can participate actively during this election.
How can you evaluate the involvement of women in the political spheres of Cameroon? When we look at women as far as politics is concerned,
yes,
even in the decision-making circles, we have very few women even though the government with the introduced program that was called the National Gender Policy introduced some few years back. It was going to run between the year 2011 to the year 2020. The aim was to get more women involved in the political landscape in Cameroon. What could be your evaluation now as per the involvement of women in political activities in Cameroon?
Looking at the involvement of women in politics in Cameroon today, I want to think that we have improved a lot, because many more women are becoming implicated in politics. I want to tell you that last elections, 2011, we had two candidates. We had two female candidates who made us proud. It's true they didn't win, but the fact that they had the courage to stand in the forefront of politics means that women have decided to stand on their feet. Yes.
But it's a different story today. Two women deposited files at elections in Cameroon and all the files were rejected. Is that not diminishing? Is that the objective you seek to attain?
That is not the objective we seek to attain.
Were you disappointed?
But we, of course, for one, we are disappointed in Wilf that those candidates were not retained. But the reasons for their not being retained, we can't tell, because we do not master the ins and outs of the validation of candidature as far as ELECAM is concerned. We are a bit disappointed, but we know that there are other elections that are coming up, and we are sure that women will come up strong in those elections.
How do you mean coming up strong? How are you going to mobilize women? What are your plans during this electoral period, now that no woman is taking part in the election? Do you see women involved in political activities like the various candidates that are running for the election?
Yes, in those different political parties, they do have women. And those women will be participating either in the back or in the forefront.
Okay.
They participate in their own way. As far as our association is concerned, as far as WIF is concerned, we have come up with the Women's Situation Room. This initiative copied from Nigeria, that we are training women to be part of the electoral process, in the sense that they will be observers. We have been training them for the past weeks. We have been training women on how to participate actively during these elections in these women's situation rooms. And what does it consist of? They will find themselves either in a room or a house like this one, or in a very virtual situation where they're going to have just contact numbers, and they'll be observing elections in polling stations.
Like secure the votes?
Yes, kind of. They'll be observing, they will denounce any violent tendencies. They're going to denounce them by calling some numbers that will be given to them, so that the authorities that be, or the competent powers, might intervene. They are not there to intervene, they are not there to fight, but they are there to make reports, to observe, to use their eyes and their ears to listen and see what is happening, and let the powers that be, or the competent authority, intervene where necessary.
Is the Women for International League for Peace and Freedom reflecting or worried about how the elections would unfold and how women would participate in the election in the northwest and the southwest and even in the far north region of Cameroon?
We are really, really worried in those conflict-stricken areas. We are really worried, and we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. You know, it is not our domain to go out there and push people out.
But you are a feminist.
Of course, we are. But we will not be fighting for peace and exposing ourselves to danger or causing more problems than it is solved. So we are going to work in our own domain, that is relaying information to the powers that be, because we work more on advocacy, encouraging the government, telling the government it is good to do this, or we develop strategies and propose them to the government to tell them this is how we think you can go about to solve this problem.
You say you're working more on advocacy.
Yes.
How much do you know about the situation of women in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon?
As of now, we know the situation is deplorable, because during conflicts, as we have now in the northwest and the southwest region, those who suffer most are the women and the children. You know, the women suffer most because those who die are children who were born by women. They carry those children, whether they be from the army or from what we call the Amazonia. They are people born of women, and they suffered for these people. So those dying and those suffering and those who have been displaced because of this incident affect the women so much. So we as women, we really feel uncomfortable in this situation. And I can say it's rather unfortunate that we cannot really act on the ground in the southwest and the northwest region, given the very dangerous terrain.
Meaning that WIF is not going to expand its initiative of ensuring peaceful election and securing votes in those regions because of the crisis?
Not at all. I've told you that we work mostly on advocacy.
Okay.
And we work on information. So what we do is, if I am on Equinoxe at this hour and I'm talking on TV or on the radio, those who are watching me on Equinoxe right away will obviously get the information I'm transmitting. And when they get this information, they can now repeal it or give it out there to their neighbors, ear to ear, mouth to mouth. That's what we call informal negotiation. So those of our mothers who are over there, what we can tell them is that at this moment in time, we, the women of WIF, we might not be able to come down there to gather you, to talk with you, to see how to negotiate this issue. But then you are at home with other younger children who are seeing what is happening on the ground. You negotiate with them and make them understand that what is happening is not good. Because those who are in the bushes are our children. Most of them went in there for various reasons. But the fact is that violence does not bring peace, because this thing has gone on for years.
Close to 2 years.
Close to 2 years now. Why? Because this violence came up. I think if it started and we went to the negotiation table and tried to dialogue, we would have been telling a different story at this minute. Because most of them who are in the bushes are out for revenge. Most have gone in because they wanted to revenge their loved ones who were killed. So we are pleading with mothers out there in the northwest and the southwest region that we are with you. We know exactly what you're going through. It's true we can't come right there because you can't expose yourself to danger by trying to bring peace and then you kill yourself. But please, ladies, please, mothers, we will have to pray a lot. And then we talk to the younger ones at home to dissuade them from such violent ideas.
That is your plea to the people. You've talked
To the
about
people.
advocacy on the part of the government.
Yes.
Any results so far?
So
Or you
far,
are still waiting for an outcome?
as far as elections are concerned, we haven't got any results. What we are doing now, we are training women on how to observe these elections. We have had 3 training sessions so far, up north, here in the littoral, and in the center region. We have trained a number of members of the civil society. We have trained a number of women. And we, as WILF, we advocated at one time for the National Action Plan for what we call the Resolution 1325 of the United Nations Security Council. Mm-hmm. That's a document we work with, a document that advocates for the participation of women in every stage of this politics, social life, economic, and all over. So women, according to Resolution 1325, are supposed to be active participants. They have to participate in every domain to protect the women folk, to prevent conflict, to promote their own lives.
You are, of course, preparing for an international conference to take place in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us more about that and how it's going to reinforce the capacity of WILF so that you take the message from Ghana back home to teach our women.
Yes, we are preparing for an international conference that will take place in Ghana from the 17th, that's tomorrow. We'll be traveling to Ghana for that conference, an international conference of WILF. You know, a conference is a place where you meet people, you get ideas, you have a variety of ideas. When we go to such places, we are going to empower ourselves with ideas from different countries. We have countries like Rwanda and Burundi, that have faced genocide before. They can help give us ideas on how to prevent or to protect our country from getting into such situations.
And you come and implement them.
And then when we come back now, not implementing, but we inform, we train, and then we educate those right down there. We make proposals to the government, we make recommendations to the government.
So we'll be expecting to hear from WIF in the coming days when you're back from Ghana.
Very soon.
Thank you so much, Madam Opultin Kenfak F.I. Somba, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
To our viewers, it was equally a pleasure having you with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.